Hello and welcome to Training Tuesday, where we go through weekly tips and tricks to make your career just a little bit more awesome. This week, we are digging into the topic of toxic positivity and this resistance I see in a lot of ambitious women when it comes to embracing their struggles. And, I was talking to a client of mine a week or two ago, and we were talking about this idea of something that's been going on with her lately, a little bit of a pattern. And we were talking about how she has been filling up her calendar and feeling really burnt out and just feeling super overwhelmed and putting herself into this state that in the Myers-Briggs world we call like in the grip, right? Exceptional, stress out, generally not good. And when we dug into what was going on here and why she had been filling her calendar up and what had been going on behind the curtains, she had this realization that is very common with a lot of ambitious women. She had some other stuff in her both personal and professional life that she had been avoiding dealing with, that she hadn't really want to look at or hadn't really wanted to take the time for. And so instead of taking the time for it, she decided, unintentionally, she didn't realize she was doing this, but she decided to pack her calendar so full so I don't have to deal with those things, right? And this is unfortunately something I see a lot with many, many women, especially these ambitious type A women who are like, oh, gotta just keep trudging on. I don't have time to stop and think. I don't have time to stop and worry. I don't have time to deal with any of these things that are coming up for me. So instead, I'll just pretend that they're not happening and power through, right? Wrong. Not such a good tactic. Because at the end of the day, right, if you want to be able to move forward through whatever that next step is, you have to allow yourself the time to deal with whatever it is that's coming up for you. Whether it's something personal, professional, those little scary gremlins in the back of our head, if we don't listen to them and if we don't give them a space to talk, they'll just get louder and louder. That I can promise you. So we want you to actually start to work on dealing with these things, right? Processing things so that you can then move forward with your next steps, opposed to just trying to sit with your fingers in your ear and go la 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 and mute everything out, because that doesn't work so well. And so my really thing I wanted with what this got me thinking about was this idea of toxic positivity. And toxic positivity is a term that is making its way around the self-care development space right now, all about how toxic positivity is all about like how people kind of say this, like, you'll be fine, it'll be great, as a form of encouragement. And the way that the term originated was talking about how this is actually really problematic, right? Because it's not actually good for people's mental health when they're saying that they're having a challenge, for us as their friend to just say, don't worry, everything will be fine, right? It's not gonna really feel like you're being heard. It's not true empathy. It's just kind of trying to push the feelings away. And so while that's the original term of toxic positivity, I thought it really applied here. It's this thing that I often kind of see that same mentality come up for women putting that pressure on themselves, right? Trying to not allow themselves to feel any of the discomfort. And so instead, they try and just power through like the boss that they are, except for it's not actually advantageous, right? The truth is, when we allow ourselves times to process things, when we allow ourselves times to go through the things, we can move on from them, right? Give yourself room to grieve and process and all of those things, and then you can move forward, opposed to trying to just use mind over matter. Because it's almost like giving yourself time to heal after an injury instead of running on a broken leg with a cast. You probably need that time to work on it, and then you can keep going, right? And so my tip for you this week is I want you to really think, I want you to really ask yourself, am I giving myself time to process everything that it is that's going on in my life? Or am I trying to ignore any of the parts that don't sound so comfortable, that don't sound so good, and pretend like they're not happening? Right? Because that's the question that only you can answer, and that's a really important question. Am I giving myself time to process this, or am I trying to ignore whatever these problems are? And if you are trying to do the ignore thing, think about what your tactic is. Is it like my client who fills their calendar with too many things? Is it trying to just, right, say that everything's great when it's not? What is your go-to tactic for avoiding if you are not taking time to process things as you need to be or as you ought to be? Right? So consider whether you're actually taking the time to feel your feelings. If not, what is your go-to tactic for avoiding them, so that you can start to identify it and cut it out. because we don't want that here, okay? So that is my tip for you this week. I'd love to hear if this tip resonates with you. If it does, give me a thumbs up or shoot me a direct message. I would love to hear from you, but start there. And in the meantime, happy working.